How a lonely mountain man transformed a cursed girl into his incredible blessed wife. Sam tightened his grip on the axe, sweat trickling down his brow. With each swing, he expelled years of solitude and longing. The sharp crack of wood splintering echoed through the stillness of the Appalachian woods. Yet somehow it couldn't drown out the whispers in his mind. Was he truly destined to be alone, crafting furniture from reclaimed lumber, surrounded only by the whispers of towering pines? His craft was a legacy passed down from his grandfather, with each piece of furniture telling stories that Sam yearned to share. But as he dragged another log toward the fiery pit he called home, a familiar ache punctured through the rhythm of his labor, an emptiness that suffocated like the early morning mist rolling in from the mountains. Loneliness clung to him like a second skin, a silent companion in the quiet of his days. As he collected firewood, a sound drifted through the trees, a chorus of whispers intertwining and beckoning him. Against his better judgment, he followed the tendrils of voices, leading him deeper into the heart of the forest. There, in a clearing, stood Sarah, the outcast, the cursed girl, once cherished by the town, now shadowed by tragedy. The haunting sorrow reflected in her emerald eyes mirrored his own struggle. He hesitated, the weight of judgment heavy in his chest, but her pain called to him, drawing them closer, tethered by a shared heartache. "Why do you hide?" he finally asked, unsure if he wanted to examine his own question. Sarah glanced down, her gaze trembling as she murmured about the accident that had taken her parents. With each word, Sam felt the bricks of his defenses crumble, exposing the raw vulnerability he had long buried. In that moment, they were two souls adrift in a tempest, searching for an anchor. Together, they forged a fragile bond, cloaked in laughter and shared stories that flowed like the river nearby. But just as hope began flickering to life, the scent of smoke invaded their haven. An ominous fire ignited in the mountains, its rage consuming the trees, the sky morphing into a churning canvas of chaos. Panic rippled through the townsfolk, the shadows of their pasts awakened in the echoes of disaster. Sam's heart raced. Should he stand by the community who had cast them out, or find refuge in Sarah, nurturing the budding hope they had intertwined? The internal struggle clawed at him, every breath a reminder of the choice looming ahead. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As flames glared in the distance, illuminating their faces with the orange glow, Sam's muscles tensed. The town was calling for him, for her. His legs trembled against the weight of their past. The laughter and hopes they had begun to construct together now felt like a fragile house of cards ready to fall. Would he and Sarah dare step into the blaze, standing against the judgment snaking through the whispers of the wind? Or would they retreat, allowing the flames to consume their newfound bond along with the remnants of a life that had long sheltered their demons? The inferno surged closer, ash raining down like lost dreams. And in that moment of desperation, Sam knew he had to choose. The sight of the flames morphing into demonic shapes sent a jolt through Sam's core. His instincts screamed for him to flee, but as he locked eyes with Sarah, a different kind of fear took root. It clutched tightly in his chest, a suffocating awareness of what lay at stake, of what they had just begun to build together. This was not merely a choice between the town and the girl. It was a fundamental reckoning with his own past and the bonds he was willing to forge. "Sam, we can't just stay here," Sarah whispered, the tremor in her voice igniting urgency within him. Her emerald eyes glistened under the fiery glow, reflecting both desperation and determination. Could they really risk their lives for the very community that had scorned them? Yet the flickering images of the townsfolk flashed through his mind. Their curdled stares, the sharpness of their words, each one a reminder of why he had retreated into the solace of the woods in the first place. But Sarah was not just a reflection of his own pain. She was a glimpse into a future unmarred by loneliness. The thought ignited a flicker of resolve in him. "Let's go," he finally said, his voice stronger than he felt. They might need help. In that split moment, he recognized the power of choice, that he wasn't just a bystander in his own life. They sprinted toward the chaos, driven by something deeper than mere desperation, a shared resolve to confront their ghosts. As they joined the thrumming heart of a panicking community, Sam's experience as a craftsman kicked in. He assessed the path of the flames, recognizing how they devoured everything in sight. "We need to clear a path," he shouted, the commanding tone surprising even himself. "We can control where it goes." His transformation had begun, one not defined by solitude, but by service and courage. Together, they spread out among the fleeing townsfolk, organizing the chaos into something actionable. Sam used his axe to chop down brush to create fire breaks, while Sarah coordinated groups towards water sources, the river, distant but accessible. The town hadn't expected a reunion like this. Two outcasts leave
the charge amidst rising panic. Every swing of his axe fueled a new sense of purpose in Sam. Each fractured limb was a liberation from the weight of his own isolation. For Sarah, the process offered a refreshing perspective, transforming her grief into something proactive. As they worked side by side, stolen glances and fervent smiles twisted their connection into something more profound than before. The town still viewed them with suspicion, but in those fleeting moments they forged a bond stronger than the flames threatening to consume them. But amidst the urgency, doubt flickered through Sam's mind. Was he simply responding to a crisis, or had he discovered an innate purpose? Engaging with the town transformed a burdensome echo of his past into a burgeoning sense of agency, a skill he never knew he possessed in the face of adversity. As twilight blurred the lines of day, engulfed in smoke and desperation, he finally grasped. Real courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the will to act in the face of it. He exhaled sharply, certain a critical decision stood on the horizon. This moment was merely a prologue to larger challenges yet to come. But the flames were not their only enemy. In the shadows, old rivalry stirred. As night fell, squabbles erupted among townsfolk, desperate to claim the narrative, an unsettling reminder that bonds could be fragile. Sam felt the tension crackle in the air. No longer a mere participant, but a leader, he sensed the full weight of his choices pressing down. The question loomed, could he truly bridge the rift that separated them all? As Sam prepared to confront dissent within the ranks, he braced himself for a clash neither he nor Sarah could predict, but which would determine not only their fate, but the future they dared to imagine together. As the night settled over the chaos, shadows engulfed the townsfolk, their frustrations heightening like the crackling embers surrounding them. Sam stood at the epicenter of this storm, feeling the palpable divide among those he had once considered neighbors. Determination coursed through him, yet the confusion of his old wounds lingered. The sounds of conflict rang through the air, raised voices, accusations flung like arrows, and in the midst of it all, Sam caught snippets of blame directed toward him and Sarah, the very duo who had once been ostracized but were now resented for their sudden leadership. "Who do they think they are?" a voice hissed, fracturing the illusion of unity. "We don't need them here." The sting of rejection ignited a spark of indignation within him, but he quelled it. Anger wouldn't steer the ship into calm waters. Taking a deep breath, he moved toward the throng, conscious of every pair of eyes following him. With Sarah a step behind, he wrestled with the hesitation that pulsed through him. Here lay a choice:
to either venture into the fray, risking rejection once more, or to retreat into the safety of anonymity once again. "Everyone!" Sam boomed, his voice cutting through the din, surprising even himself with its authority. The crowd quieted, reluctant but curious. "I know we're scared. We're all feeling the heat, both from the fire and from each other. But we don't have to be at odds. We're all in this together." "Together? You're just using this to feel important." A man's voice rose from the back, sharp and bitter. Sam's heart dropped. It echoed the sentiment he had feared the most, and doubt ricocheted inside him. Did they really see him as a manipulator? Was he simply a new target for their unresolved grievances? "I'm not here to take control," he replied, his voice steadier now, bolstered by Sarah's reassuring presence beside him. "I'm here because the fire doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care about our history. We can be swallowed by anger and fear, or we can fight back together." Tension hung thick in the air. He glanced at Sarah, who simply nodded back at him, a silent vow that they would face this challenge together. Perhaps this was the test of unity he had subconsciously craved. "I know many of you have your doubts about me, about her," he gestured to Sarah. "I can't change the past, and neither can you. But I can assure you there's strength in working side by side. We're all hurting. We've all lost something today. But if we let that divide us now, we risk losing even more." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, the warmth of shared struggle softening the edges of hostility. Yet Sam recognized that this moment of connection was fragile, perched precariously on the edge of a chasm. Still, the rising embers served as a reminder that they all stood against a common enemy. Sam began to delegate tasks, his earlier disorientation now transformed into clarity. He pointed individuals to patterns in the flames, while assigning others to help create defenses against the fire. There was an instinctive efficiency to his movements, a facet of himself he had never given credence to before. But just as momentum built, an unexpected voice broke through the newfound cooperation. "You think we'll listen to a cursed girl and a mountain man?" it spat out, venomous and loud. The crowd stalled, returning to an unsettled disarray. Fear and mistrust rumbled beneath the surface again, igniting fresh flames of discord within their ranks. Sam's resolve wavered for a moment, and he clenched his fists at his sides. He had stepped into the role of a leader, but the demons of his past loomed large. Could he truly overcome it? The questions clashed within him, resonating with the charged atmosphere. He could see that Sarah's face mirrored his own uncertainty. The battle was just beginning, and this confrontation could either strengthen their bond or break them apart once again. Resolute, Sam straightened his stance, ready to counter the animosity that threatened to engulf them. "The time has come to face those ghosts," he murmured, gathering his thoughts. What he didn't fully understand was that this clash was not merely between the townsfolk and the remnants of old rivalries. It was a reflection of his own internal struggle, a battle that would determine what kind of man he was willing to become, not just for Sarah, but for himself. As icy fear mingled with a burgeoning sense of purpose, Sam prepared himself for what lay ahead. With the flame's flickering light dancing in his eyes, he took a step forward. The real test was still out there, lurking in the dark. Who would step down first, the flames or the ghosts? Sam's heart raced as he searched the faces before him, shadows hiding resentment and fear behind their eyes. He could sense the skepticism swirling like smoke in the air. Each accusation against them felt like a personal blow, but he had recognized that navigating through the chaos required more than just resolve. It required vulnerability and leadership, the very qualities he had long struggled to embody. "Why should we trust you?" The bitter voice pierced the air again, causing a ripple of agreement among the crowd. "What makes you different from the rest of us?" Trust, Sam thought, is earned in the trenches of adversity. He reflected on all that had accused him of being a cursed girl follower, and yet, what had he done to combat that notion? He needed to stop reacting and start proving something meaningful. His thoughts shifted, piecing together a strategy to regain control. What if he shared his truths, his imperfections? "I've been in your shoes," he declared, his voice grounded, carrying a weight he hadn't foreseen. "I've struggled, lost myself in anger and pain. When I was alone in the mountains, those demons haunted me at every turn." Silence enveloped the crowd, their curiosity piqued. "I've learned that it's okay to struggle, but we must choose to act, not just for ourselves, but for one another." For a moment, he could see the walls around them crack. Vulnerability, this was the bridge he needed to cross. It would not erase his past or theirs, but it could offer a way forward. He glanced at Sarah, her expression softening as she caught his gaze, as if understanding the decision unraveling within him. "I know being thrust into leadership feels unnatural," he continued, "but together we have the chance to reshape this story. The Flames have no need for titles or history. They need our courage. Each voice here has a role to play." He pointed to a few faces, recalling their strengths. "Elizabeth, you've been a skilled hunter. Use that precision to help guide us in managing the fire's direction. And Marcus," he added, casting his eyes to another witness of the struggle, "your knack for building could be pivotal in creating barriers." As he methodically acknowledged individuals, little by little he felt a shift. Their collective energy began to coalesce into something tangible, a bond formed through renewed purpose. It was a lot to ask, this leap of faith. But Sam was learning that he couldn't carry the burden alone anymore, no matter how strong he might think he was. Yet a voice clawed its way through again. "You think a few compliments will change anything? We're still just waiting for the next disaster." For a split second, doubt washed over him. But he rejected it. Self-doubt was a trembling leaf he refused to be. He had chosen to step into the unknown, and that meant confronting adversity head-on. "True, there may be another disaster," he acknowledged, "but we won't be cut adrift by fear. Together, we form a line." A stunned stillness, unfamiliar to him, conquered the crowd. Sam inhaled deeply, bolstered by an unexpected surge of power and clarity born from a sense of shared vulnerability. The ghosts of his past no longer held sway over him. He had acknowledged their presence and used them as fuel instead. But just as he felt the wave of solidarity swelling, he noticed Sarah flinch, a shadow passing over her face. Following her gaze, alarm coursed through him. A figure was emerging from the shadows, a man. They all recognized him. It was Baron, their oldest adversary, an embodiment of everything they'd fought against. "Is this what it comes to?" Baron sneered, stepping closer, his predatory gaze fixed on Sam. "Weakness masquerading as leadership?" Sam felt his pulse quicken, the tension in the air spiraling. The final confrontation was upon them, and more importantly, it would challenge the very essence of who they had become. He steadied himself, preparing to dive into the storm that was about to unfold. Things were about to get explosive. Would the bonds they had forged hold strong against the weight of Baron's venomous challenge, or would they splinter apart? Baron's presence loomed over them like a dark cloud, and Sam felt a string of fear twist around his heart. This was the moment he had both dreaded and anticipated, the pivotal confrontation. He had made progress in connecting with his peers, yet now it threatened to unravel with a few taunting words. "Is this what passes for strength in your world?" Baron prodded. His voice dripped with disdain, aiming to cut through the collective resolve Sam had sought to nurture. You're nothing but a lost boy playing at being a leader, a puppet dancing to whatever tune your so-called followers hum." Sam straightened, a rush of indignation surging through him. He recalled the abandoned fire pits he had once sat beside, consumed by thoughts of inadequacy and fear. Those days felt distant, yet achingly familiar. He could feel each heartbeat echoing the dread that had once defined him. But the time for silence was over. "No," Sam shook his head, suppressing the tremor coiling within him. "This isn't about me or my past. It's about choosing resilience over despair. You may think you know strength, Baron, but your games of fear have only drawn out courage in us." The crowd shifted uneasily, eyes wide, tethered to a tension palpable enough to taste. Baron's lips curled into a mocking smile, his confidence like a vice. "Courage, a pretty word for a pretty lie. What have you proven? Where is the evidence of this so-called courage? Show me, Sam. If you're going to stand, make your mark, or else we will all see just how empty these words are." Sam's gut twisted. He felt the gaze of each member of the crowd burn into him. They had given him a chance, and it felt like a blessing. But now their hope was at stake. Breathing deeply, he turned the confrontation inside out, realizing Baron's provocation could serve as the catalyst for revealing true strength. Evidence lies not in grand gestures, but in choices made in moments of trial, Sam declared, his convictions solidifying like steel. Let's not wait for the next disaster. Let's take action now and face the flames together. Around him, murmurs of encouragement started to build, a sound softer than the crackling of embers, but unmistakably strong. He made eye contact with Sarah, a small, inaudible breath escaping her lips. Her support was palpable, a flicker of unwavering belief against the encroaching night. "You think that chanting slogans will save you?" Baron scoffed, stepping forward. "You're playing with fire, and you don't even know how to handle the heat." "No," Sam countered, feeling the strength swell within him. "You underestimate us. We know the pain of loss. We've felt the heat before, and we are wiser now." Baron's eyes glinted with malice. "Then let's see what you're made of. I'll give you a chance to prove all this drivel. One challenge. If you're truly capable, show it. But if you fail, you'll see just how fragile your little group really is." Every word hung heavily, echoing through the clearing. Each pulse in Sam's veins vibrated with fear and purpose. He realized that to accept this challenge was to sacrifice everything he had built. But he also understood that to back down would only validate Baron's sneering cruelty. "What's the challenge?" Sam asked, his voice steady. Baron smirked, his scheme glinting in his eyes. "Prove that this group you've gathered is worth more than the dust you're made of. Face me in the trial of survival on the cliffs of Raven's Peak. If you think your courage can withstand the fall, I welcome it. But if you fail," he let the words hang, a chilling promise laced within. The stakes rose ominously. Sam looked around, gauging the faces of his peers as they weighed fear against hope. Together they had forged a bond, but what if that bond cracked under a trial designed to test not just their strength, but their unity? "And if we succeed?" Sam challenged, the fire igniting within him now hard to quench. Baron's confidence deepened, smirking again as if he relished in the fate of others. "Then perhaps I will reconsider my opinion of you." The crowd buzzed with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. Sam felt the uncertainty raising a tide against him, but he wouldn't waver. He began to outline a plan, rallying those around him as the implications of Baron's challenge settled in. This wasn't merely a test of survival.
It was a defining moment that would shape their identities and resolve. As he faced Baron, something within him solidified. The fire crackled louder, echoing the battle raging inside. He had a decision to make. Would he rise to the occasion, risking everything for the chance to solidify their newfound strength, or would he falter against the shadows of doubt? The path ahead was perilous, and as he steeled himself for the impending confrontation, he knew the real question remained. Would the bonds that had begun to form be strong enough to withstand the impending storm at Raven's Peak? The air crackled with tension, and as Baron's challenge hung in the balance, Sam felt the weight of responsibility pressing down upon him. Every heartbeat served as a reminder of the impending trial. Raven's Peak loomed in his mind, both a physical and symbolic mountain to conquer. The crowd's expectations swirled around him, encapsulating a singular thought. Failure was not an option. Sam turned away from Baron, grabbing Sarah's hand. He needed to harness the energy of those surrounding him. It was time to channel fear into determination. "This isn't just about survival," he began, raising his voice to cut through the clamor. "It's a moment for us to stand tall, to prove that we are more than just whispers of doubt in the face of intimidation. We are a collective force of resilience." As he scanned the faces of his peers, he could see the uncertainty there, swimming in their eyes. He needed to transform that uncertainty into something tangible. "We understand what it means to struggle, don't we?" he asked, affirming their shared tribulations. "We've been pushed to our limits, and through that, we've learned what it means to fight back, to build from ashes, to strengthen our bonds." Sarah nodded, but the fear in her gaze reminded him of the stakes. What would happen if they failed? He steeled himself against the thought. He couldn't afford to let it creep in, not now. "Let's harness our experiences," he continued. "Let's create a plan that exploits our strengths, that unifies us even more." As he spoke, clarity washed over him. Maybe this was the moment to uncover his hidden talents, not just for himself, but for the entire group. He recalled the stories of old, where leaders emerged from the fog of doubt and fear. Perhaps there was a leader within him, clawing to be released. But how? A flicker of inspiration ignited in his mind. "I want each of you to think about your strengths," he urged. "What can you bring to the table? If we can match our skills to this challenge, we can become not just players in Baron's game, but the architects of our victory." A ripple went through the crowd as they began to murmur amongst themselves. Sam watched as realization dawned on their faces. Each individual could contribute uniquely, reinforcing the group as a whole. It wasn't just his leadership they were relying on. It was a mosaic of talents, experiences, and shared burdens. "Let's assign roles," Sam said, the words pouring forth with renewed vigor. "We can scout the cliffs, strategize approaches. Each of us will take ownership of this challenge." He felt the initial resistance begin to ebb, replaced by a collective conviction. Yet beneath that burgeoning hope lay an undercurrent of fear. What if he led them too carelessly? What if his determination was not enough to fight against Baron's manipulation? The shadows of doubt still flickered at the edges of his consciousness, urging him to tread carefully. As they engaged in planning, he realized he was not just drafting strategies, but also weaving their destinies tighter together. Collaboration blossomed in the face of adversity, setting a foundation for strength he hadn't anticipated. Sam's heart raced with possibilities, but he had to ensure that they would prepare together as one strong unit. Once they had completed a draft of their plan, he called for silence. The group quieted as he approached the cliff's edge, feeling the wind whip around him. "To turn fear into strength, we must stand united," he said, drawing deep from his well of courage. "Let us face this challenge not as doubt-ridden individuals, but as a steadfast team." They cheered, a desperate yet hopeful sound echoing, which momentarily drowned out Baron's mocking laughter. In that moment, Sam transformed fear into resolve, feeling a wave of emotional clarity wash over him. He was no longer the doubting boy he once was. He was a leader cultivating a tormented past into hope for the future. But as his feet stood firm on that edge, confidence surged within him. What if the greater challenge was not just barren, but the very essence of his own leadership? Would they trust him enough to follow him into danger? The gnawing question loomed. When the chips were down at Raven's Peak, would he have what it takes to lead them through the fire? Or would they once again falter under pressure? Sam's convictions crystallized. A storm was brewing, and he felt the call to embrace it. The battle was not just against Baron, but against what lay dormant within him. All he had to do was unleash it. As they readied themselves for the trial ahead, one thought resounded, echoing with an urgency that filled him with both dread and determination. The time had come to face not only the mountains that loom in front of them, but the mountains within himself. As the first light of dawn broke, casting a golden hue over Raven's Peak, Sam felt an unsettling mixture of excitement and dread whirl within him. The air was thick with anticipation, a shared tension that lingered among his group. Each of them was bound together by a growing commitment to tackle the daunting challenge that lay ahead. Yet, ingrained deeper within Sam's psyche was the gnawing question of whether he had the true capability to lead them to victory. They had developed a strategy, one he believed in, but now it was time for execution. Standing at the base of the craggy ascent, Sam observed the jagged cliffs defined by nature's indifference. The rocks appeared unforgiving, much like the reality he faced. The looming challenge encapsulated his fears, but also promised growth. It was a paradox he felt compelled to confront, yet he couldn't shake the internal unrest. "Focus," he whispered to himself, just as he mentally reviewed his last night's plans. The team would tackle the cliff in sections, allowing them to strengthen their collective resolve. Each member had embraced a role, but Sam also needed to constantly recalibrate himself, ensuring he was not just a figurehead but an authentic leader. Before they commenced their ascent, he gathered everyone for one final huddle. He could sense the fear bubbling beneath their focused exteriors, but vulnerability was not a weakness they could afford. "Remember why we're here," he urged, searching each face for a glimmer of confidence. "The mountain isn't just a physical challenge, it represents everything we face together. We conquer it by believing in ourselves and in one another." As they began their climb, Sam positioned himself at the forefront. With each step, he felt a gradual shift. No longer were they simply a group of individuals hoping to survive. They transformed into a team, relying on their collective strengths. The initial fear began to morph into a catalyst for action as he guided them, using the skills he had unearthed in their planning sessions. Halfway up, they hit a particularly rough patch. One of the climbers slipped slightly, panic flashing across her face. Sam froze momentarily, his instincts urging him to react. A flash of doubt phased through him. Was he really equipped to handle this? But as he met her frightened gaze, something within him steeled his resolve. "Keep your footing," he called out, his voice steady yet urgent. "Remember our training. Trust in your abilities. We're right here." He reached out a hand, feeling a thread of connection strengthen between them. Just as she steadied herself, a surge of exhilaration coursed through Sam. This was it, the defining moment of leadership, the experience of turning fear into strength. As they continued climbing, Sam led by example, pushing through his own exhaustion. The sweat dripped from his brow, a testament to the physical struggle and the emotional strain that coursed through him. With each challenge they faced, he unlocked a deeper understanding of himself, his fears slowly being eclipsed by newfound strength. Was he truly evolving, or was he merely succumbing to the pressure of the situation? Despite the discomfort, he had to confront a forthcoming realization. There was a precarious balance between leading and letting others step up. He
needed to cultivate trust, not just by directing, but by sharing responsibility. This was as much about empowerment as it was about overcoming obstacles. As they reached a higher ledge, Sam felt a wave of relief wash over him. The view was breathtaking, yet it was more than that. He realized this wasn't just about conquering the mountain outside. This was equally about shattering the self-doubt inside him. But the summit still loomed ahead, and he sensed a shadow looming over the journey. Barron's oppressive presence was a constant reminder of the stakes. Would they falter when challenged again? Could Sam manage his fears now that the heat was truly on? The climb wasn't just testing their physical endurance, but stripping bare their character, revealing hidden depths. As the peak beckoned, Sam knew that the defining trial still lay ahead. In this struggle against nature and self, the ultimate question remained. Would this ascent transform them all into who they were meant to be? The next obstacle awaited at the pinnacle, but it wasn't just the mountain they had to conquer. It was the realization that true leadership meant facing the darkness within themselves alongside the fierce descent that awaited after they reached the summit. Would Sam unlock the courage they needed when it mattered most? The ascent continued, the jagged rocks gnawing at their resolve. But Sam drew strength from the bond he was forming with his team. Each grunt and shout echoed his own struggle, resounding through the crisp mountain air. He felt an electric pulse of energy. Was this what true leadership felt like? A lot was at stake now, with their trust in him woven tightly with his determination to prove himself. As they approached a particularly steep incline, Sam noticed the strain begin to etch itself into the faces of his team. They were not simply wrestling with the mountain now. They were wrestling with doubts that had clung to them since the moment they decided to embark on this journey. The collective tension, coupled with the raw elements, the whipping winds and the dust, created a cacophony of fear and hope. "Focus on your next step," he advised, turning to face his teammates. "We've come this far. Let's not lose sight of that." His voice trembled slightly. A flicker of doubt ignited within him. Did he even have the capacity to keep them grounded when the heights were dizzying? In that moment, vulnerability washed over him. He wasn't immune to the fears that haunted them. He felt them clawing at his soul as well. Yet, acknowledging that fear became a catalyst for connection. "We'll face whatever comes next together," he added, his tone gaining strength. He caught their eyes, and for a fleeting moment they found assurance in his vulnerability. As they resumed climbing, Sam found himself wrestling with the next step of his leadership. He needed to embrace the discomfort and channel that into something productive. The realization struck him abruptly. Leading wasn't merely about overcoming, but about creating space for others to grow alongside him. When the team reached a narrow ledge, he paused to reassess their strategy. "Let's take turns leading the way. Everyone bring forth your strengths." The suggestion momentarily puzzled them, yet curiosity prevailed. He could see the glint of realization in their eyes. This was not simply his ascent, it was their journey, a shared endeavor that required their unique contributions. Sam stepped back a fraction. As he relinquished control, a wave of anxiety swept through him. Could he truly let go of the mantle of leadership? But then he remembered the climber's panic earlier, and how his determination had anchored her. What if another moment like that arose, but he wasn't there to catch them? Would they believe in themselves as fiercely as they believed in him? This was a deeper exploration of his leadership journey, one entwined with the growth of others. As the team shifted and took turns at the front, Sam felt his heart surge. Each time someone faltered, another stepped in. The mountain became less of a threat. It transformed into an opportunity for them all to showcase resilience. He was no longer merely a guide. He was part of a dynamic tapestry woven from diverse strengths. By lunchtime, they settled on a rocky plateau, fatigued yet invigorated. As they rested, Sam couldn't help but notice a change within himself. The weight of expectation felt lighter, and for the first time, he embraced the idea that success as a leader didn't hinge solely on personal accolades, but perhaps more on nurturing the potential in others. Thoughts of Barron loomed in the corner of his mind. He recalled the warning of danger, the implications of failure. But as he surveyed the faces of his teammates, he understood something fundamental. They were in this together. The burden was collective, and perhaps he hadn't needed to shoulder it alone all this time. This climbing exercise had become more than a physical challenge. It had laid bare the essence of teamwork. A question still lingered in the back of his mind. Could they truly hold fast to this newfound synergy when the true test lay ahead at the summit? As they resumed their journey up the steep slopes, Sam steeled himself for what was to come. Would he be able to defend his principles when faced with an external threat? Or would the pressure and fear from the past draw him back into the shadows of doubt? The mountain still towered high, possessive and relentless. But somewhere deep inside, Sam knew that if they could embrace this moment, they might just discover more than a path upwards. They could find the courage to confront their own demons as well. The ascent grew steeper, and the jagged rocks around them began to tell stories of those who had gone before. Sam felt a shift within himself every time a teammate led the way, their expressions shifting from trepidation to a newfound resolve with each determined step. For the first time, he truly witnessed the dynamic of leadership, one that blossomed from vulnerability and mutual trust. As they navigated the rocky terrain, he caught sight of Maddie struggling just a few paces behind. Her breath quickened, and her hands gripped the stones as if they were trying to anchor her to the mountain. Sam instinctively slowed his pace, glancing back at her. He could see her internal battle playing out in real time. "Maddie, you've got this," he encouraged, his voice rising above the biting wind. "Just take it a step at a time. Remember what we talked about. The strength of the team lies in each one of us." Her eyes met his, a flicker of determination igniting in them. "You're right," she said, resolutely, pushing herself forward. In that moment, Sam understood that his role was to bolster others, to help them climb not just the mountain, but their own doubts. As they continued up the slope, the clouds rolled in ominously overhead. A chill hung in the air, causing Sam's heart to race with the old fear of failure. He had managed to cultivate a sense of teamwork, yet here came another test to unravel it. Just as the wind began to howl like a banshee, Sam proposed a brief halt to reassess their approach. "Let's check our gear and regroup. Remember, our priority is safety," he instructed. Adrenaline coursed through him as he gathered their collective focus, even as the storm loomed above, threatening to clash with their recent unity. He observed their subtle interactions carefully. Some laughed softly, while others shifted uneasily, glancing at the mountain summit that seemed so near yet so daunting. He felt a gnawing concern. Had he cast aside the weight of their emotional burdens too quickly? Just when he thought the team was ready to face anything the mountain could throw at them, a shadow of doubt crept back into his mind. In the quiet of this pause, Sam was confronted with a moral dilemma. How far could he push them? Was it fair to encourage his teammates to face their fears if he still clung to his own? He submerged these thoughts beneath the surface. No one else needed to see the cracks in his stoic facade. Yet they all depended on him. As a leader, it was his duty to contain his struggle lest it spill over and disrupt the bond they were building. As they adjusted their gear, he felt the tension drain just a little. The moment of vulnerability he'd initially shared seemed to echo, vibrating through the group. It was time for them all to embrace uncertainty together. "Let's try something different," he declared suddenly, emboldened by this realization. "We need to acknowledge our fears openly. Who's willing to share what's holding them back?" A wave of surprise rippled through the team. But as they took turns revealing their worries, a misstep, a fear of heights, a traumatic memory, each contribution further solidified their camaraderie. Sam listened intently, noting how the simple act of expressing their fears transformed the atmosphere. What had felt like impending doom was now becoming a collective source of empowerment. As they resumed their climb, Sam's heart pounded against his ribcage, but now he welcomed it. He was not merely carrying this load alone anymore. Every shared fear felt like an anchor, stabilizing them against the storm. They drew strength from one another, and he flourished amidst the chaos. But just as they pressed on, the wind howled stronger than before, and lightning crackled above. A dark figure emerged in the mist, towering against the stormy backdrop. Sam's breath caught in his throat. This challenge was unlike any he had faced, and he sensed the intensity of the situation escalating. Could he maintain the momentum they had built, or would the arrival of this sudden threat push them to unravel? The answers whispered through the wind, teasing him as they approached the figure looming ahead. Sam steeled himself for what was to come, knowing the next steps would define not only this climb but their entire journey together. As the storm roared overhead, crashing thunderboxes resonated through Raven's beak, testing the bonds the group had cultivated. Sam steadied his breath, poised to face the looming figure, Baron, now shrouded in the tempest like a specter from their shared past. The air thickened, mirroring the tension crackling among the climbers. This was the moment they had been preparing for, yet the stakes felt higher than ever. Was he truly ready to hybridize his journey of personal transformation with the responsibilities of leadership? He grasped Sarah's hand, her feelings of doubt mingling seamlessly with his determination. Together, they stepped forward as one, refusing to be consumed by the shadows of isolation that had once defined them. "Baron," Sam called out, his voice echoing against the thunderclaps. "You're not going to intimidate us anymore. We faced our fears and discovered strength in unity." Baron's laughter was a sharp, cutting wind, brimming with disdain. "Strength in unity? Looks more like a crumbling facade. You think a few climbs and shared confidences make you strong? This," he gestured to the flashing storm, "is real adversity." In that moment, Sam recalled the fundamental truth he had grappled with. True resilience emerged not in the absence of fear, but in proactively standing against it, together. With newfound confidence, he stepped closer to Baron, aware of the depth of every soul behind him, whether they felt it or not. "Our past does not bind us anymore. We're stronger than you know." Baron squared his shoulders, eyes narrowing into slits. "Then let us see, shall we? You set the terms of this little contest. You are outnumbered, facing an undeniable truth. Fear possesses strength, too." Without hesitation, Sam realized the battle was upon them, but this time the dynamics had shifted. "You're wrong, Baron. Fear can fuel us or blind us. I choose to harness it." Invigorated by his own words, he turned back.
"Remember what we've shared, urging them to harness their collective energies. Remember what we've shared," he implored, his voice steadying the storm within each of them. "Every moment of struggle, a memory of pain, now gives us the strength to push through. Together, we are an unstoppable force. Let's rise above, not despite our fears, but because of them." With his rallying cry, the team felt the momentum shift. Each person stood taller, steeling themselves against the tempest Baron represented. They had forged connections deeper than circumstance. They had emerged from the ashes together. "Let's begin," Baron challenged, but his bravado wavered on the edges of disbelief. He had let the storm blind him to their growth, entrapped in the same defeatist cycle that had long bound him to isolation. As the first draw of the contest began, a race to reach the peak, Sam felt the weight of his transformation swell within him. They moved as one cohesive unit, the fears rising to challenge their resolve. Yet they no longer staggered under the weight. Instead, they leaned on the strengths of one another, overcoming physical trials with collaborative encouragement. Reaching formidable heights, exhaustion mingled with triumph. They cascaded down embankments, crossing treacherous ledges while trusting one another to catch a fall or lend a hand. Sam dove headlong into his determination, without the paralyzing grip of fear that once kept him sequestered in the woods.
every breath drew strength from the spirit of community they had established. Soon they arrived at the summit, where the searing wind was no match for Sam's newfound resolve. Baron, awash with disbelief, fumbled in his attempts to intimidate. "You haven't won yet. You'll still fall under the weight of your own shadows." His voice trembled, faltering against the unity exuded by Sam and his friends. "Not today," Sam asserted, steadiness punctuating his words. "We'll no longer tie our worth to your perceptions. We've discovered our strength in enduring the toughest storms." The realization washed over him like a wave. He had transformed. Leaning into vulnerability had not only strengthened his connection to others, but profoundly disrupted the narrative of defeat that Baron had spun around them. The boundaries he had once erected around himself had evaporated into thin air. As laughter mingled with the distant thunderstorms, Sam allowed himself to bask in the victory. They were no longer the outcasts, but rather determined survivors who had conquered their inner turmoil, emerging triumphant not just against Baron, but against every demon that had haunted them. "You're cast aside, Baron," echoed, forcing the finality of their victory into the air. "We refuse to let your darkness creep into our light any longer." Realization hit with piercing clarity. This was not merely the culmination of a challenge. It marked a profound personal evolution. Sam stood at the precipice, the mountain beneath his feet a testament to his journey of authenticity and connection, an affirmation of agency he had long denied himself. As they descended hand in hand, their laughter resonated like a victorious chorus against lingering winds. No longer did they carry burdens of sorrow, but empowered spirits willing to face the world unshackled. This was not just a new chapter, it was the beginning of fervent renewal. They would exchange isolation for unity, building a future grounded in trust and strength. Once and for all, Sam had dismantled the belief that one's past dictated their potential. He had forged a path not just for himself, but for all those seeking solace in belonging. And with that undeniable connection, he felt an exhilarating thrill. He had achieved not just acceptance, but irrevocable empowerment. Their collective journey had come full circle. He had arrived in the fullness of authenticity, his rightful place, not just as a leader, but as a partner in perseverance. Now, as he gazed out from Raven's Peak, it was time for others, those on their own journeys of transformation, to witness and embark on their own paths. He concluded he would support and share their stories, just as they had done so for him. So, as the sun rose gloriously behind the silhouette of the mountain, a flicker of rebellion burned strong within him, one that wouldn't rest until every last echo of doubt was extinguished. This was the moment to reach out. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss a single story of transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and share this video with at least 5 friends who need this inspiration. Don't wait even one more second to comment your thoughts on this thrilling conclusion. Your voice matters in the fire of this community.